and his colleague, Dennis Bramble. And basically what they did is they put forth this hypothesis that maybe we actually evolved the way we are today in our structure because of running. And that running was really instrumental, that we needed to run. And there's a whole theory behind that I don't have time to get into, but it involves persistence hunting. What they did is they compared Lucy, who is an Australopithecus, to Homo erectus. Lucy was, or Australopithecus, was really considered a walking man, and Homo erectus is a running man. And compared features between the two to try to make an argument that we basically evolved to run. So here's one, nuchal ligament. That's a ligament in the back of our neck that holds our head up from bobbing, okay? Pigs, who are walking animals, don't have them. Horses, which are running animals, they do, okay? Australopithecus did not, but Homo erectus did. And these are just some of the others, and there are about 26 of them. I'm just going to list 10 of them. Expanded lower extremity joint surfaces. Again, stress. Remember, running twice the force, so you need larger surface areas to distribute that load. Longer legs for stride length. Shorter femoral neck reduces the bending moments on the bone. Long Achilles tendon. Expanded glute max attachment. This is for trunk stabilization. I tell my husband, honey, that's why I have the glute max I have. It's really just to keep my trunk up. You can walk without an Achilles tendon, basically. Okay, but you can't run without one. Plantar arch, and it goes on and on. So there are these characteristics of the man who now runs that weren't there in the man that walked. So again, it really spoke to me. Here's another piece of information. This was taken from the 2004 New York City Marathon Times. Doesn't matter what the times are. This is the time that the fastest 17-year-old ran, okay? The 27-year-old person won the race, was a male, and so that was the fastest time of the entire race. At what age do you think you get back to the time, the fastest time of the 17-year-old? How old are you? We know we decline. At what point? Just throw a number up.
60.
Okay? Anyone else?
65.
65. Someone's read the book. So it's 64, actually. So a 64-year-old actually ran, the fastest 64-year-old ran as fast as the fastest 17-year-old in that particular race. If that's not an indication that we were meant to run long distances throughout our life, I don't know what is. And in fact, the Tarahumara, that means the running people in the Copper Canyons of Mexico, they run 40, 50, 60 miles till they're 40, 50, 60, 70 years old if they live that long. Okay? So there's no other sport in which a 64-year-old can compete with a 19-year-old. So, I'm thinking to myself, all right, I've been studying runners for 20 years. I've been treating runners for 20 years, and I don't run. I stopped running 20 years ago. What's up? So I thought, well, maybe I am born to run, but I really did not want to get injured, didn't want to get a total hip for sure. When you look at the distribution of injuries, what's I think really interesting is that 30 to 75% of runners, depending on who you read, get injured in a given year. If we were meant to run, and we evolved to run, do you think birds get rotator cuff injuries or fish get fin injuries? No, that's what they're designed to do. Why do we get such a high rate of injuries? And these are the most common injuries that we see. So when I started looking at these common injuries and started thinking about impacts and started thinking about strike patterns, we started increasing our microscope here. We started taking a broader view of injuries, and we started looking at other injuries. And what we found is that impact peak, the tibial shock, load rates were higher in those who had other injuries, soft tissue injuries. So now we're not just talking boning. Now we're talking plantar fasciitis, as well as patellofemoral pain syndrome and tibial stress fractures. Remember, those are some of the most common. But these data were retrospective. And what I mean by that is that we collected the data after they had been injured. So it's not as strong of a relationship because we don't know whether the actual injury caused a change in the mechanics. So we started looking prospectively. We conducted a study. We collected 242 runners. We did a instrumented gait analysis on them ahead of time. We followed them for 2 years, and we recorded their injury on a web-based database sort of program. We did a follow-up. And what we found is that 139 of them got injured prospectively. That's 57%, so it's right in the middle of those numbers that I gave you a little bit ago. 103 of them did not get injured during that 2-year period. Now, of the ones that got injured, We really wanted to focus on those who sought medical attention because we figured those were the more serious injuries, plus they're going to be the ones that are diagnosed. We feel better about those, a little more validity in that. Of the 103 who got injured, didn't get injured prospectively, we wanted to see how many of them never got injured, because that's a really pure group, right? We had 22 who'd never get injured. That was 9%. 9% of this group of 242 had never been injured. That means 91% of them had been injured at some point in time. That, to me, is really alarming. And what we found, folks, and I know that this story is starting to sound very repetitive, but the impacts were higher, impact peaks, load rates, and tibial shock, those particular variables, and not peak force, again, were higher in those who went on to get an injury. These are prospective. So we also found that you have a 3 times higher risk of developing an injury if you have load rates that were that of the injured group. So, and these were still rear foot strikers. These were all rear foot strikers. They haven't even changed their strike pattern. So what that tells us is that you can strike on the rear of your foot and not get injured. So but not many people do that, but you can, and I want to admit that. But that rear foot strikers with higher impacts are at greater risk for injury. I think these global indicators are really powerful, and to me this says that this impact that we used to think, remember now, back to the early part of my talk, these we thought were the normal people. These were the normal people, and the forefoot strikers were the outliers. I now think that this impact is not something we're meant to have, and I think it is, at a higher guess, it is a global indicator for injury. I'm going to leave you with Eric's story because I get testimonials all the time, almost every day. This was someone local in Newark. He was a very talented 19-year-old male runner who recently won the local trail marathon in our town. And someone came to me and said, you know, he did it in Vibrams and he's had a real incredible injury history. You should talk to him. So I talked to him and found out that he was a top freshman cross-country runner in the state in 9th grade. In spring, he developed pain, numbness, tingling, foot drop in both legs. So for those of you who are probably guessing, it progressed to foot drop during his run. So what are you thinking? Maybe compartment syndrome. And that's basically what he had. He sought medical attention, and I know the physician he sought medical attention from, very conservative. He sees all the runners. He's a runner himself. He underwent with catheter tests to test the pressures in the compartments. You have 4 compartments in your lower leg, and they contain groups of muscle. And when the muscle hypertrophy is faster than the bag of fascia around it can contain it, the pressures go up. He had elevated pressures in all 4 compartments of both legs. 8 compartment syndromes. I've never seen that before. He underwent 8 fasciotomies. I don't know anyone in here who probably has done or heard of 8 fasciotomies. And again, I know the physician. He spent the summer recuperating, came back in the fall, had a great season. Spring, all the symptoms came back. Come back again. He went back to the doc. He said, okay, I'm not going to do any more surgery. Let's try some strengthening. You've got some tibial varum here and some flat feet. Let's try some foot orthotics. But the thing that Eric knew, and he's known this all along, he said, every single picture of me running, look at that strike pattern, okay? And if you look here, that's just the anterior compartment, but it's a no duh that this guy's got an anterior compartment syndrome. You can see that anterior tib just really bulging because he's got such an extreme rear foot strike. But he could not manage to change this. And remember about the filtering of the sensory input? It's hard to change your foot strike pattern when you've got a shoe underneath. It's just very difficult. In the fall, he struggled. He got a second pair of orthotics, but his legs were rock hard. In the spring, 3rd pair of orthotics, no relief. He also tried motion control, cushioning shoes. He just developed this increased hip and knee flexion in order to finish the race. Now, in the spring, he was ready to quit, and it was the last race of the season. It was a 2-mile race, and he was in the back of the pack, and there was someone up front. And this kid is very intense. He's a chemical engineering student at UD now. And how many people saw Rocky, the last Rocky? Okay, well, I don't know. I almost saw the first and last, but he digs down and finds the fire in his belly, basically for that last fight. That's what this kid did. He dug down, found the fire in his belly, and he went after that guy up front. And did he win? No, but he came in second. And that was enough for him to be motivated to accept an offer from the University of Delaware to run cross country. Didn't make it through the season, dropped out, completely despondent. Running was his salvation. So November, just a little over a year ago, someone introduced him to the Vibrams. He figured he had nothing to lose. He just started walking around them and they felt great. So he said, I'm going to go out and run. He ran 6 miles. How many people think that's a good idea? So he was really sore in his soleus, decided to be more reasonable. He started progressively increasing his running. He was up to last spring running 50 miles a week, high intensity. He won every single race he has run. He won that marathon not by a little, but by 15 minutes.
Wow.
And he's had no symptoms at all. Now, that's what I think happened. I don't think Vibrams are a magic bullet. I'm not supported by Vibrams. I'm just saying that what it did is he couldn't land on his heel in a pair of Vibrams, and it got him back to a more natural foot strike pattern and addressed his underlying mechanics. Now, this is how I get off of my foot, off of my heel. People always say, what is a girl like you doing in a pair of shoes like this? But I love heels. And actually, there are races for those of you who love heels, right? And for the guys in the group, there are races for you as well. But I'm going to circle back to my running history, okay? So I actually, 30 years later, I'm 30 years older, I'm heavier, and I am running now, well, the snow kind of slowed me down, but about 20 miles a week, barefoot or in minimal footwear. And I've honestly, swear to God, not had a single injury. Now, you do need to protect your feet. Now, I don't want to go away not really highlighting this. You can do it with lots of different kinds of footwear, but you need to protect your feet when it's cold. My husband, who's a Green Beret, went out and ran in the cold and wore a full thickness defect the size of a quarter under his first metatarsal head, completely off by running barefoot because he couldn't feel. That sensory input's important for that. In the dark, where you can't see what the surface is. On trails, it might be uncomfortable. I know people run barefoot in the trails. I want to add another one because I did blister my foot on some hot pavement, so hot pavements. You do need to protect your feet. So if we evolved to run, why do we get injured doing it? Here's my 3 reasons. I don't think we were meant for the speeds that we are now pushing. You know, I don't think we were meant for sub 2-hour marathons. The persistent hunters were out at 10-minute miles, which makes me happy because that's, you know, kind of where I'm at, sort of slow. Because they didn't know if they were going out for an hour or for 6 hours. They didn't know. Okay? We're now pushing the envelope, and we'll never take it back. I don't expect that we ever will, but I think this is one reason. I don't think we were meant to land on our heels. Hopefully I've convinced you of that. And I think we've taken away a lot of the function of the foot. The posterior tib, the peroneus longus, all the intrinsic muscles of the foot. The demand on those gets significantly reduced when you put someone into a motion control shoe that doesn't allow the foot to move the way it does. So here's the paradigm shift. People, let your children go barefoot. I actually, when my kids were little, I got them into the most supportive shoes with the arch supports. I was all over that. But today, when my granddaughter, who's 3 years old, comes into my house, I take her shoes off the first thing. Take her wild woolly hair out of her ponytail and take her shoes off. So it's important to go barefoot. Wear flip-flops. I feel like Baz Luhrmann. Did you ever hear that song by Baz Luhrmann? But wear flip-flops. If you want to keep wearing shoes, at least try to adopt less of a heel strike pattern. It's hard, it's very difficult to do it, but that's at least an option. And maybe try reducing your footwear. You don't have to go barefoot. Try just going to less and less shoes. If you walk into a shoe company today, a shoe store today, Marathon Sports, whatever it is, you're going to see many more choices of low-profile minimal shoes. I really do believe we were born to run. I want to try to bring people who said running isn't for me like I did back into the fold of running, and I think we can do it. This isn't the only, certainly there's other issues related to running injuries, and I don't want to leave you with the thought that this is only it. But this, I think, it plays a very big part in it. I just want to acknowledge